Hi, I'm Karen Hodgins, co-founder of Kidnexions, and in this video I'm going to share with you the What's My Rule Pocket Cards activity. Now this is a great activity to get kids to explore patterns in number and then make generalizations about those patterns in the form of a rule. Now the specific patterns that students are going to be working with are called functions, and that is a relationship between two sets of numbers, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. The packet comes with 5 pockets and their cards, and the pockets and cards are double-sided. It also comes with 5 blank cards, which are also double-sided, and the nice thing about the pockets and the cards is that they're laminated, which means they'll last for a very long time, and students will get to use dry erase markers on these blank ones, which they can use over and over and over again. Okay, so you want to introduce the activity to students. Now the directions are on here and they're pretty simple, and basically what it says is they're going to look at the columns up here, the number of clovers, and this column over here is the total number of petals. They'll look through this window and figure out, okay, there's 1 clover here, and they need to make a prediction how many petals are on that clover. And what's really nice about the pictures is that it's very concrete, very visual. Kids can actually count 1, 2, 3 petals, pull up the card and see that yes, indeed, there are 3 petals there. So now they look at the next 2 clovers and they can count them if they need to, and then they make their prediction, 6, and they pull up the card and they keep on going until it asks them, what's my rule? Now the first time kids do this, they're not going to be exactly sure about how to describe that rule. So you may need to walk them through that part. And one of the things that kids are going to discover right away is that they're skip counting by 3s. Going by 3s, the multiples of 3s. But now we want to move kids into the next level and get them to reflect on the relationship between the 2 columns. So how do you get from number of clovers over to total number of petals? And some kids may pick up on that. You multiply the number of clovers by 3 to get total number of petals. So 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, and so forth. And we want kids to describe that verbally first, like I just said, multiply the number of clovers by 3 to get total number of petals. And at the next level, okay, they can begin to write that algebraically. C, which is clovers, times 3 equals P. Now on the reverse side, it's the same pattern, only this time they don't have anything to count. So it's a little bit higher level of abstraction there. So they'll pull up the card and they'll see 3 over here. There's not enough yet to generate a pattern, so they'll pull up the card and they'll see 6, and they'll recognize that pattern from the other side, and they'll make a prediction 9, and so forth. And again, they're asked, what's my rule? And this time it's going to be multiply the in number by 3 to get the out number, or in times 3 equals out. Now there's a challenge card in here, and that is this hexagon. And the reason why it's a challenge, I'm going to pull it up so that you can see, is that instead of this hexagons being separate and counting all the edges, these hexagons are now pushed together, so you lose those edges in there, and it creates a different pattern over here. I'm going to pull this up a little bit for you. Kids will see that there's a difference of 4 in between there, but the challenge is, remember, we're trying to get kids to get the relationship between the 2 columns. So the challenge is trying to figure out what do you do to this side to get to that side. And some kids may come up with the rule, which is if you multiply the hexagons by 4 and then add 2, you'll get to the total number of edges. So 1 times 4 is 4, plus 2 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 2 is 10, and so forth. And again, they can describe it in words, and then they can describe it algebraically. 4 times H equals E. And again, on the other side, that higher level of abstraction, there's nothing there really for them to count. Okay, but this exposes them to a little bit higher equation, algebraic equation. I'll talk more about those in just a second. Now that kids know how to do the activity, they get to create problems for others to solve, and they love this. So one of the ways that they could do it is simply to draw their own pictures. So I'm going to draw very quickly here a star, and they're going to be counting the number of points. And so I just started this, so you've got a total or number of stars and total number of points, and you can see here one star has 5 points, and they would fill in the rest of that, and then they would write the rule at the bottom, and then they share that with their partner, and their partner sees if they can come up with the rule. And then of course on the other side they would do it simply using the symbols without the pictures. Now there's another way for them to draw pictures as well. You can use rubber stamps. And the key to using rubber stamps is to make sure that the stamp is small enough to be able to fit inside that rectangle. So I'm just going to put this right on here to show you a sample. But you can see that that would be, that little spider fits right in there. And then of course up here you would write number of spiders, and then we'd be counting the legs, so it would be total number of legs. And again, very, very visual. Kids can count every one of those legs and come up with the answer over here. Now I have discovered that there is another way to make rubber stamps that is super cheap, because sometimes these tend to get a little on the pricey side. So what I've discovered is that arts and crafts stores will have these foam shapes, and again the key is to make sure that the shape is small enough so that it will fit inside those rectangles. And you can see this little flower here would be small enough to do that. Now these flowers have paper on the back, so they're sticky. So what you would need to do is take a few of them and stick them together. And I have a sample right here created for you. I've taken this shape right here and I've put a bunch of them together. And then I've hot glue gunned a bead in here. And then I put on my push pin, and you want to make sure that when you put that push pin on there, that when you push on this, on the foam, the pin does not come through on the other side. And that's important, obviously, because we don't want kids poking themselves or each other, and also because you don't want to end up with a whole bunch of little holes inside your cards either. So the hot glue works extremely well, and they last a very, very long time. But that said, I would just make sure that periodically double check and make sure that they're still nice and sturdy and firm. I've also found foam shapes. So this one here is a triangle. And so what kids would be counting then would be number of sides, and there's my triangle, and here's my square, and these took 2 foam pieces, hot glue gun together. And I've also found erasers in the shape that's, that has things that are very easy for students to count. So obviously this would be very easy to count the 5 points, and again you just hot glue gun that on there. Okay, so the next level would be to take those cards and to change the in and out to X and Y. So I'm going to go back to that original one with my clovers, and I'm going to change and create an X and a Y column, because now we're going to teach kids how to record these algebraically, these rules algebraically. Okay, so you've got your X and your Y, and when you record it algebraically, you're going to record it in the form of Y equals. We want the Y to be first. And in this one, Y would equal 3X, because that's what you're doing. You're multiplying the X column by 3. So Y equals 3X. Then you could work on the other cards and show them, or they could show you how to record that algebraically. And I want to go back to that hexagon as well. We're going to change this to X and Y. And now you're going to see down here in the form of Y equals, remember, we multiplied the in number by 4 and then we added 2. So Y equals 4 times X plus 2. That's how that would be written algebraically. And it's important to expose kids to this, because when they start creating their own for others to solve, they can get creative like this. They don't have to stick with just 5X or 3X or 2X. They can actually come up with number that they multiply with x, and then they can either add or subtract a number over here, and it's really fun to have their partners try and figure out what their rule is. Now, I'm going to show you an extension. I'm going to go back to the clovers, back to my x and y, and these numbers are actually ordered pairs. Now, an ordered pair is written parentheses, 1, 3. So my next one would be written parentheses 2, 6, and then parentheses 3, 9, and so forth. And now I'm going to show students how to plot these. This is something that I would probably do in 4th and 5th grade. Okay, so you've got your 1, 3, and I've got my coordinate grid up here. This axis here is called the y-axis, okay, the vertical, and the horizontal is called your x-axis. So I'm going to plot 1, 3. I'm going to start at the 0, which is the origin. I'm going to go over 1, and I'm going to go up 3, and I'm going to plot my point right there. And then my next ordered pair would be 2, 6. So I would go over 2 and up 6, and then I would go over 3 and up 9, and over 4 and up 12. And here's where it gets really fun, because now we're going to have kids connect those dots. Okay, let's see if I can do this on here. There we go. Whoops, I moved a little bit at the end, but you can see that it creates a straight line, and we call those linear equations. And then I have students write the equation on here. Y equals 3x, and they use colored pencils and they plot all the other cards on here, and then we get to that challenge 1. Here it is, okay, the hexagons again. So we're going to plot this equation, y equals 4x plus 2. So the ordered pairs are up here, so I'm going to go 1, 6. So over 1 and up 6, and over 2 and up 10. Now I don't have enough room on this one. Students have enough room on theirs, but I'm going to go ahead and connect at least these two right here. And I can see if I can hold that firmly. Whoops. I need to push lighter. There we go. And what I want you to notice here is that it still creates a straight line, right? It's y equals 4x plus 2. But notice where it goes through the y-axis, right there at 2. See the equation? Y equals 4x plus 2. That's this part right here. It's called the y-intercept. And it shows up extremely visibly right there on our coordinate grid. So then you have students plot the ones that they have created, and when they're all done, it looks really nice. So you can see that this one activity, What's My Rule Pocket Cards, begins simply, grades 2 or 3, with kids describing patterns that they see in numbers, and then making generalizations about those patterns, creating a rule, and then coming up with an algebraic equation for that, and then they plot them on a coordinate grid. So there's a lot of great foundational work here in algebra, specifically in functions, in this one activity. And anytime you allow kids or give kids the opportunity to create their own problems for others to solve, they're going to get really engaged, and that's going to increase their learning, and that is a good thing. So I know that your students will enjoy this activity, so have fun.